Don't speed too much because they have... Don't speed too much. Don't speed.
I was going to say, I mean, you should open up your own driving instructor school. And there's 2 rules so far.
Hello and welcome to the Worldwide Honeymoon Travel Podcast, the podcast that talks about all things couples travel, including destinations, tips, advice, and more. I'm Kat.
I'm Chris.
And this is episode number 190.
So last episode, we talked about like how I thought that our Saturday night dinner was going to be a highlight.
Yeah.
And it was.
Yeah. It was.
It was so freaking good.
Tell them what we made.
We made homemade pasta, which I had never made before.
Mm-hmm.
Had you?
Well, we've made gnocchi before.
That was trash.
But that didn't go well.
We made tagliatelle?
I think so.
Thick, wide noodles.
Yes.
Really, really good. It was like this mushroom sauce with some Parmigiano, Reggiano, and you baked?
I did. I baked like this vanilla custard apple tart situation that was very, very good. All recipes were from the Splendid Table, I guess, which is in Emilia-Romagna cookbook.
Yeah.
From that region
Just
of Italy.
super, super good.
Yeah. That was really fun.
Something to do tomorrow as well.
To cook all day? Gosh, no, we cooked for a long time on Saturday.
It was well worth it, though. I mean, it wasn't all day. There was a lot of downtime. And
Well, yeah, we ran and, we slept in.
I was talking about when we started cooking from
Oh.
when we finished. It wasn't just like straight cooking.
Maybe for you.
Oh, stop.
Yeah, I was like cooking and baking and stuff the whole time. I don't know what you were doing.
Getting ready to eat.
Okay. No, but it was a lot of fun. We had a fun little Italian date night. Really brought back, we even did an aperitivo. Brought back some memories of our time in Italy, which was always a good time.
Very nice.
So that was your
my highlight.
That was your highlight.
And my update, all
and
in
your
one.
update. Nice. Same. Yeah, because yesterday we pretty much just relaxed.
Took it easy.
Took it easy.
It's a good time.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, I think that's it.
All right.
Oh, my Bon Maman advent calendar came in.
How was that not your highlight?
No, I'm very excited about it. Because last year I follow like Condiment Claire on TikTok. Amazing TikTok content there. She's like French and American, has kind of lived all over. And
what is her name?
Claire.
No.
Condiment Claire.
Condiment Claire.
Because she talks about all these different condiments on TikTok, like, chutneys and all, like, mustards. She covered the French mustard shortage.
Are they all, she covered the French mustard?
She did.
Are they all French condiments or are they from all around the world?
They're all around because she lives in London. So she has
cool.
like a bunch of stuff that are British as well. So
This
she
is
kind of
awesome.
covers all of it. And last year she did like the Bon Maman advent calendar. And I was like, this looks really, really good. And, we talked about how much, we did our own DIY Christmas ale calendar, and it was just a lot to drink very heavy beers every single day in December up until Christmas. And we were like, you know what? Maybe that's not how we want to do it this year. So yeah, I got the jelly one instead, so we can just eat jelly.
What, did you look at the flavors or do you know what the flavors are?
I looked at some, but I know there's one honey and the rest are like some sort of fruit spreads.
Honey?
Yeah. It'll be good.
Oh,
But there's some of them look like they've got like holiday flavors.
Is there a raspberry?
I have no idea.
I
There's like an
love-
orange anise type thing. Like it's kind of more like holiday flavor. It's supposed to be like unique stuff I don't think you can get. I mean, some stuff you can, but not all year round.
I love raspberry.
Okay. Now you're just doing that to bug me.
That's one of my favorite dessert flavors.
Oh boy.
What is a better berry than a raspberry?
A strawberry?
That
a
is.
blueberry?
You're going to put a raspberry before both a
okay.
strawberry and
Absolutely.
a blueberry?
A raspberry?
That's how you pronounce it.
No, it's not.
How do you spell it?
You spell it like that, but I don't say Wednesday for Wednesday.
I don't know.
Okay.
I love raspberry.
Okay. Anyway. Moving on from the jellies, I was also looking at the Lotteray calendar too that looked really, really good, but it was a lot pricier than the Bon Maman advent calendar.
How much was the Lotteray one?
It was like $100.
Wow.
But it looked really good. It wasn't just macarons. It was like nougat and chocolates and all these delightful things.
Absolutely not. Unless it's all macarons, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
Oh my gosh.
We got to do it for research purposes for France Voyager. Anyway, speaking of France and France Voyager, I rented a car in France with my sister, and we drove around the south of France for a week. Both bigger cities and tiny villages alike, and that's what today is about. We're going to talk a little bit about driving in France and what it's like to rent a car in France and some tips for renting a car in France.
That was a liberal use of the word we're.
Yes, because Christopher was not there in the rental car. I was the one who drove because you can only have one person. I mean, you have to pay extra for a second driver. And I was like, I'll just drive. Glad that it worked out that way because you're always a nervous driver when you're not the one driving, or the nervous passenger if you're not the one driving.
I would have been the one driving if we were there.
Okay. No, but really, it was actually a lot of fun. I was very nervous at first. What I didn't realize at the time was that I rented the car in Avion and dropped it off at the Nice airport. And what I didn't realize was that Avion had a couple of train stations and not just one. And I just assumed they had one, and that's where you pick up the rental car. And when we got to the Avion city center train station, we got off the train and we're like, oh, where's the rental car station? And I looked it up on Google Maps, and it was like a 50-minute walk away. And I was like, what? And so then I realized that it was on the other side of town and we had to take an Uber to get there.
Is that tip number one? Is to know where you're picking it up from?
Well, a little side bonus tip is if you're going to rent a car, make sure you know like where you're getting it, I guess. If it's at a train station, make sure you know which train station.
So we're starting at like a very basic level for tips here.
Okay. So do you want me to just dive in?
I do.
Okay. Tip number 1, get an international driver's license. It is not always required. I know certain companies can be kind of like they want it or not when driving internationally, but if you do plan to drive your car outside of the country of France, like if you go over to Italy, for example, if you are in the south of France, they do require that. So, it's just a good idea. That way, if you do get pulled over, you're like, I have all the official documentation. I have my international driver's license. But we were able to pick up our rental car. They didn't even ask us for our driver's license. They asked for my U.S. driver's license, not my international driver's license.
Original or a copy?
Original of my U.S. driver's license. They wanted to see.
Okay.
And my passport.
Did you guys get pulled over at all?
No, I was a good driver.
Okay.
But getting your international driver's license a good idea. If you live in the U.S., AAA is where you can get it for like $20. And if you don't even have passport size photos, they'll do it for you. I think I was in and out within like 15 minutes and had my international driver's permit, and it lasts for a year. So not a bad idea to get if you're going to be driving internationally, just to have it. Because sometimes police officers can be really weird about it too in different countries, whether or not your U.S. one or your national one is okay versus an international one. So I just recommend getting it for peace of mind.
Did you have to like take a test for this, or were they just handing them out?
I mean, you had to have a valid driver's license in the country that you live in.
Woof. Okay.
But the international driver's license has a list of countries that will work in. So as long as you are as long as you have your driver's license in your country of residency, they will let you have international driver's license. So no, I didn't have to take a test.
Okay.
It was just, here it is, and you had to pay $20 for it and fill out some paperwork and take a passport photo.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
What is tip number 2?
Tip number 2, let's talk a little bit about insurance. I recommend getting it. We got the full coverage plan just because we were nervous about driving in a different country for the first time and getting screwed over by rental car companies. You never know. Now, I will say the collision damage waiver, which covers your car, is typically covered in either a credit card that you already have or your current travel or your current car insurance, or even travel insurance.
I was just going to ask that.
Yeah, so double check that. But the collision damage waiver doesn't always cover everything. It doesn't cover theft. Sometimes it doesn't cover theft. I can't remember. It definitely doesn't cover like tire damage, windshield damage. Like if you scratch, like if you mess up those things, it doesn't cover it. So that'll be an additional cost. So make sure you ask about getting coverage for those sorts of things, and as well as liability and other things like that. So, yeah, we ended up, even though my credit card I booked it under, the Chase Sapphire Preferred, did cover the collision damage waiver, we did the additional for like the theft, tires, windshield, and then also liability stuff like that too. We just wanted like everything covered just in case if we dinged anything.
Didn't need to use it.
And we didn't need to use it, but it was peace of mind.
Always good.
It was peace of mind. I think it was 200 euros extra for the week, which, I mean,
I would do that, yeah.
But, I mean, we split it between the two of us, and I was like, this is well worth it for peace of mind. Because basically, if anything happens to this vehicle, we are not liable for anything. And we just turn it in as is, and they will figure it out. We didn't do anything to it, but it was peace of mind. So I recommend checking your insurance, and checking to see if you are covered for certain things like the collision damage waiver, which again, travel insurance, sometimes your own auto insurance will cover rental cars, or even your credit card might cover that. So check your insurance when you go to pick up your car.
There you go.
Tip number 3, kind of your usual driving rules. I think also they will also apply in France. Don't use your phone while you're driving. Don't drink and drive. There is a limit. It's lower than the U.S. I think it's 0.05 because it's 0.08 in the U.S.
Correct.
0.05 in France.
And this is blood alcohol content.
Blood alcohol content. So just don't drink and drive. Yeah, same as here. Wear your seatbelt, obviously. And follow the speed limit. It will be in kilometers per hour versus miles per hour. So it may look really, really fast when it says 110, but you are not going 110 miles per hour. I think that's closer to like 70 miles per hour. Also, you might want to learn a little bit, just Google the road signs and what they mean, because they do not all mean the same thing.
Hold on. Is this the same tip?
Yes.
Okay.
The usual car rules, like knowing the signs.
What are some examples of different ones?
They will have signs. Well, speed limit signs don't have, like it's not like the square ones you see in the States and say speed limit. It's just like a circle with a speed on it.
Okay.
And what I also really enjoy is, my sister and I would crack up about this. They do have a speed limit sign that will say the speed limit, and underneath it'll say like rappel, which just means like remember. Like we would be like, remember. It's like 50 kilometers per hour. Like you should already be going this.
Was the number on it?
Yes.
Or was it just the word speed limit? Remember.
No. It had the number in the circle, and then underneath of it was a small sign that said rappel.
Oh, okay.
And it just basically means you should already be going the speed limit.
Yeah.
And we'd always crack up about it because it'd be like, remember, you're going 50 kilometers per hour. But yeah, just knowing the usual car rules is a good idea. Look up the signs because they will be different. Number 4, follow the speed limits. Don't speed too much because they have... Don't speed too much. Don't speed.
I was going to say, I mean, you should open up your own driving instructor school. And there's 2 rules so far.
Can we just say that...
And then don't speed too much. So...
I am not communicating this well.
My goodness.
No, what I said was... Okay,
the French Automobile Society is just beside themselves right now.
Okay, you're taking this out of context. What I mean is, like, in the U.S., sometimes, like, most people tend to go over the speed limit a little bit.
What?
Not much, but a little bit. And I feel like in France, I was not willing to risk it because I didn't want to get pulled over. But there are also speed cameras versus, like, cops. So you may not know if you're speeding until you get, like, a little friendly letter in the mail that's like, hey, you owe us money because you were speeding, and you get a fine for it. So
tip number 5 is do not give them your real address.
No.
When you are renting the car.
Will you stop? Give your real address. Just don't speed. Follow that. Tip number 5. There is no right on red. In the United States, at least, for the most part, unless there's a sign that says do not turn right on red, you can turn right on red because, as long as there's nobody coming, that's allowed. That is not the case in France, so do not turn right on red just because there's nobody coming. That is not allowed. Kind of to go... Did you have a question?
Nope. Clear as day.
Okay. No right on red.
No right on red.
I think that might just be a U.S. thing, that people go right on red.
You've made a lot of broad generalizations in this episode.
Will you stop? Okay. Pivoting off of that, but there is a random priorité à droite, which means that priority is given to people who are going right, which can be terribly confusing and terrifying on like certain roundabouts because
I don't think any of us are confused right now on this.
No, instead of going straight.
Oh, on a roundabout.
So like the right has no. Okay, this is hard to explain. Which is why it's kind of nerve-wracking. You could be driving on a straight road and the priority could be given to the person turning right. Meaning you're going to be the one that has to yield if you're going straight.
Okay.
Yes. Unless if there are signs that say otherwise, because there will be signs that will typically say who has the right of way.
Okay.
Whether it's like this, if you're going straight has right of way, right or left, etc.
Okay.
And roundabouts, for the most part, should not be like priority to the right, because then that would mean that anyone getting on is the priority instead of yielding. Except for around the Arc de Triomphe. That area is priority à droite, which is terrifying because it already looks very intimidating to be in that area, and let alone driving.
Did you drive in that area?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
All right. So just a recap from everything so far, just so we're clear. Get your international driver's license, figure out your insurance, usual car rules that also probably apply in most countries. No phones, wear your seatbelt, don't drink and drive, know the signs, that sort of thing. Go the speed limit is number 4. And number 5 is about no turning right on red, but also beware of priorities to the right. Once you get driving, it's not as crazy as you think it is. It's pretty normal, but that was very intimidating for me at first. The next tip is really big: to rent a small car.
This would seem very important.
Yes, because if you are going in these tiny towns, there are some very, very tiny roads. Even the roads are pretty small in general in France compared to like the United States. So having a smaller car is helpful to navigate that so that you don't worry about accidentally scratching anything when you go down tiny alleys, or parking, because parking spaces are even tiny. And there's just, like I said, tiny roads. Unfortunately for us, we had rented a tiny car, but as soon as we pulled out of the rental car station, the tire light came on and we were like, well, we need another car or something. They gave us another car. It was an SUV. And then I was just nervous the rest of the trip about driving in tiny towns. It is doable, but there were many times I had to put the mirrors in to prevent them from scratching along the sides of things and other cars. And parking was a challenge with a bigger car. My next tip is make sure that when you're renting a car, if you are American like myself and you don't know how to drive a stick shift, make sure to rent an automatic, because that is not the default. And I will say it is more expensive. Manual is always cheaper to rent there versus an automatic car. And there are tons more manuals than automatics. So make sure to book early on those, and to designate that you want an automatic car and not a manual if that's what you want. If you can drive a stick, then that's great for you. My next tip is about roundabouts. They are all over the place. I know here in the States, or at least where we live, they're starting to become more popular. It's great because you're not stuck behind traffic lights all the time. I love roundabouts. Yes, they're fantastic. They're all over the place. They will be multi-lane roundabouts sometimes. But yeah, they really help keep the traffic going pretty smoothly. So we didn't have too much traffic where we were, but we were also going between like towns and villages versus like giant cities. So roundabouts are great. My next tip is to download offline maps. of where you're going. That's really easy to do on Google. Just find your place that you want to be driving in and say that you want to download the offline map because, for example, we were driving the villages of the Luberon and there wasn't a lot of cell phone service in a lot of those places. So having the downloaded offline maps really, really helped because whenever we'd lose service, I still was able to navigate pretty easily between all of that because I had the directions already downloaded. Yeah, I mean, that's always super, super helpful. Or if you don't want to use data to navigate and you don't want to pay extra for a GPS, downloading the offline maps is always a great idea. Which I will say, too, it's very similar to cars here where you plug it in and they have the cell phone maps pops up on your screen. So you can just use your normal navigation that way. Next tip. Things to budget for aside from just your rental car, because you'll have your actual rental car price, but you're going to want to budget for things like gas, parking, especially if you're parking in towns. We had a lot of times that we had to pay for our parking, and then tolls. There are a lot of toll roads throughout France. You could always take back roads and scenic routes and stuff, but sometimes it's just faster to take the toll road, and that can add up after a while. So make sure to include in your travel budget for those things. Next tip, I do not recommend renting a car in big cities like Paris. You don't need a car really in cities like Paris.
That would be a nightmare.
Yeah, like you don't really need it just because there's so much public transportation in and around the city and parking is a nightmare and it's expensive and I don't know. I think it would be terrifying to drive in Paris, just the amount of traffic and stuff. So I just don't really recommend it, especially between big cities. If you can avoid it, you can usually take trains between those. But the great thing about having a car in France is if you want to go to these smaller cities and towns that don't always have train access, especially these smaller towns like in the Luberon, it's great because you can access that. Otherwise, you'd be reliant on a bus system that is like not very reliable and only runs a couple times a day and not really meant for tourists. It's kind of meant for locals to get from city to city or town to town. So yeah, really, if you're just going to be bouncing around to the big cities in France, I wouldn't recommend driving a car unless you want to go see, the tinier towns.
I agree with that. I mean, and that's kind of the same here too, right? Like when we went to New York City, we drove to New York from here, but we weren't driving around the city to go get different things. Or like same when we're in like DC or something like that. It's always easier, in my opinion, to take the train. So
yeah, I would say the only reason why we did that in New York was because we didn't want to fly because it was expensive and we just kept our car
exactly
in the parking garage the whole time. So, which we did do in the cities, like when we were in Aix-en-Provence and in Avignon, like we pretty much just parked our car and paid to park it.
Yeah.
Something that's really, really interesting, necessarily a tip, but a lot of the places to park are app pay. That's
so
you're
nice.
not really putting coins into a machine, which is great, or even
Thank
just having
goodness.
to charge your card. You can just download the app, put in the lot number or whatever, and then you can pay that way, which is fantastic because sometimes they don't always offer 24-hour parking. You could it's like 4 hours or something, and then you can renew it, and it'll send you notification when to renew it. So when we were on our wine tour in Châteauneuf-du-Pape, my car was about to expire, my parking in Avignon, and I was able to renew it from my phone versus being like, oh crap, I'm going to be late and get a ticket.
That's fantastic. That's such a nice feature.
Yes. So that's a really, really good feature that a lot of cities have. But again, a lot of cities like Aix-en-Provence, we were able to find a parking garage not too far from the downtown area. But another tip that I do have is take the scenic route if you can. The toll roads are nice. They are very convenient, and I highly recommend them from getting to long distances from each other. But sometimes the best part of a road trip in France is taking the scenic route, like the villages of the Luberon. Like we could have driven very quickly from Avignon to Aix-en-Provence, but instead we checked out a lot of the villages of the Luberon on the way. And even our last day on the way from Cannes to the Nice airport, we could have just taken the toll road straight to the airport. Or instead, I ended up changing the GPS route and took the road that was right along the beach or right along the sea, which was absolutely stunning. We passed by all these smaller seaside towns, saw the beaches, and it was just really, really cute doing that, which I really, really enjoyed.
That sounds nice. I like doing that on road trips generally.
Yeah.
Like, I like being able to like stop at certain places, not like I don't like go out of my way for certain things, I guess, but it is nice to take it a little bit slower. Like our trip to Vermont is kind of coming to mind in that regard.
Yeah, and I really liked, I really enjoyed it because we could stop at random places, like a place to grab a baguette or a snack, or like, there was a lot of times that we would just be driving and be like, oh, well, this looks cool. Let's pop into this like lavender distillery or something like that, which was really neat.
That sounds neat.
It was really cool. I really had a great time. It was very nerve-wracking at first, like I said, as it is driving in a country where, it's not your native language. It's not, luckily it is on the same side of the road and everything as it is here in the United States. So I would imagine driving in the UK would be quite nerve-wracking for a couple of days. But once you get the hang of it, it was really great. And I really enjoyed it. Do you have any other questions about driving in France?
I think the last tip is that none of this is legal advice.
Okay.
Familiarize yourself with French driving laws.
Yes. I mean, that is important. At least Google.
It is.
At least Google road sign.
I know I said it kind of jokingly, but like at the same time, like, yeah. And that's important, not just for driving, but like, I mean, even if it's not a law, if it's a custom, like just being aware of like what you can and cannot do. Like living in the United States, that sometimes we just kind of take for granted that is not the case everywhere else. So whether it's driving or whether it's other things, just do your research beforehand. Don't just rely upon the amazing tips that you give.
Yeah, thanks. And yeah, you're right. It's not the same as driving in the United States 100%. So it's very helpful to kind of familiarize yourself with the biggest rules of the road there, as well as traffic signs are a big one, and knowing like kind of how to navigate those. And also I know just a little extra tip is about honking your horn. I know in certain countries it's kind of like a, hey, I'm here sort of thing, versus at least for me personally in the US, when I use it, it's more like a, please don't hit me, or like you've been sitting for a while at the stoplight and I'm like, hey, pay attention. That's kind of the same in France. It's not like a honk, honk, honk because you're angry or something.
It's an I'm here, or it's like a bleep button.
No, it's like hey, like you're about to hit me, or like just like catch your attention so that like.
It's a bleep button.
No, it's not.
It's not like a hey, I'm also here sort of thing.
Well, yeah, if they're about to back into you, you can give them a honk and be like, hey, I'm here. Please don't back into me. Or if someone, again, is like stopped at a stoplight for a while, then you might get a honk at you. But it's not like in like Vietnam, per se, when we were there and there was a lot of horns and it was almost their way of being like passing around or something. You know what I mean?
Right. This is an aggressive honk. When in doubt, use the horn.
No, don't. Can you not? Don't listen to Christopher. He has not driven in France. He doesn't know.
No, I'm saying even here. When in doubt, use the horn.
No. Don't go heavy on the horn. Like I never used it. Only use it if you like need it. You know what I mean?
That is the title of the episode. Don't go heavy on the horn.
Don't go heavy on the horn. Have a great time road tripping around France. Those are all of my tips that I have and that I can think of right now, because that was... I mean, again, it's pretty similar to the United States in a lot of ways, but there are some definite differences. So all things to keep in mind when you go to rent a car in France. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you have any more questions or anything like that, you can always reach us on Twitter at WWHoneymoon, Instagram at Worldwide Honeymoon, or email kat@worldwidehoneymoon.com. But thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to rate and review our podcast. It takes less than a few minutes and really helps other people find us. Also, if you're enjoying this awesome free information on both the blog and podcast, when you're booking your next trip, head over to worldwidehoneymoon.com/resources and use the links provided. We earn a small commission at no cost to you when you book through these links, and these are all brands and companies we know, love, and use, like Skyscanner for finding the best flight prices, World Nomads for the best travel insurance, TripAdvisor for hotel bookings and reviews, and even Amazon for all of your travel purchases.
Thank you for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Wherever you are, wherever you go, remember to make every day a worldwide honeymoon.